In the American Midwest tonight, the tornado zone. Shock giving way to an overwhelming feeling of loss as thousands of families are facing the fact that their homes and everything in them is gone.
We have damage. It's leveled all the power lines.
Oh, brother,
We got debris hitting us on the side of the road.
it's getting wider.
This is absolutely the potential worst-case scenario developing.
It looks like it's getting closer to I-44. We're right here at the toll plaza.
God, it's a monster. Back up, back up, back up. Right.
We have to just express to you this is 200-mile-per-hour winds plus. Look at all the debris. Look at all the debris in the air. Folks, please, we plead with you. You absolutely have got to get down. You just go to your safe spot if you possibly can. That's an F. Look at the horizontal vortex. That is an F4 to an F5 tornado. That's winds of 250 miles an hour.
Well, it started off just a normal day, selecting orders, loading trucks, and then as the day ended, I noticed that sky was really pink.
Watched the storms travel down the interstate and realized that they were getting closer and closer as we watched them on the TV, on the channel news. They were tracking them. And probably 45 minutes to an hour before they actually arrived in the Stroud area, the supervisor, G.R. Hill, transportation supervisor, called me from the facility and said he was going to take the guys to the shelter because were getting tornado warnings. And at that time I looked on the screen and sure enough there was tornado warnings for that entire area. And I waited about another 25 or 30 minutes and then went to shelter.
You know, you start getting weather reports and start thinking of all the drivers that had just departed with routes that were heading toward Oklahoma City.
Kept watching the television, the weather forecasting, and it just kept coming right down the turnpike.
At that time, we didn't have cell phones, so it's not like you could just call somebody and find out how they were or warn them yourself.
You could feel the air pressure change a little bit, and you could hear a little bit of noise and just like a loud boom, banging, and then everything kind of stopped.
Once the tornado had gone by, and we came out of the cellar, I jumped in my truck. I headed over toward Sygma, and I was about a mile down the road when I realized I was hearing a rumbling underneath my truck, and it was actually a power line that I was straddling going down the road on the way to Sygma. So I had to go in reverse for about a quarter of a mile, take a different route.
We drove down the highway and noticed all the poles were all leaned off to the side. Everything was down. Went out to, drove by the hospital. The hospital was dark. There's parts of the roof in the road. Pulled into Sygma, and it started raining. The entire shop was gone. There was a toolbox standing out where the mechanic shop was, but the shop was gone, the toolbox was untouched. It was crazy.
We went out there, got as far as we could in the car, and so glad to actually see people there, but the building was it was demolished.
I had my flashlight with me. Was able to get out and see the damage to the building and all the destruction. And like idiots, we went through the building that was basically demolished. Wasn't very smart, but we went through with flashlights looking to see the damage and all the areas and product that was strewn around the place.
There was an outside carrier there. It was pretty strange. He was there, and he had happened to pull up when everyone was going to shelter, and he decided to ride out in his truck, and he had his grandkid with him. And when we got there and we seen that, there was a tree through the side of the trailer.
We had to get the computer backups out of there. At that time, we had to send them off to Denver every day. The computer room had part of the roof removed, but the part where the computers were at was actually intact, and we were able to get the backups out of there.
And just the complete devastation of the building. I mean, it was, the roof was gone, the back was gone, employees' cars were gone, the building was on the employee cars. We pretty much had to contact drivers and let them know what was going on.
seen in a truck stop while we were down there. We stopped and grabbed something to eat, and we saw that there was, you know, a chance of tornadoes up at home.
I couldn't get nobody at Sygma at first, and then I called Mike at home, and he goes, "Charlie, you won't believe it. It's a disaster."
I just thought, oh my gosh, are we gonna have a job? What are we gonna do?
I didn't really know what to expect. I was kind of just following the lead of the VP and the manager at the time, and waiting for orders, and those came rather quickly. That night, we were told to get in contact the next morning, to get lists of our employees and go door to door. Those you couldn't reach by phone, then go door to door and get your employees gathered up, because then on May 5th, 2 days later, you'd be leaving.
So of course, then I started receiving a phone call, and Cisco and Sygma have emergency preparedness plans for these things. And so it was probably about 2 hours after the incident, maybe 3, then I started receiving calls at home, and we started setting up routing for my house that night to go to other centers to make deliveries.
He said, "Y'all are going to, a few of you are going to Danville, Illinois." And there's like 7, 8 trucks when it started heading north.
Well, we set up a command center for my customer service team at my home. And it was crazy because we were using a generator because where there was no electric or water.
So the decision was made by, I'm sure Cisco Corporate, Sygma, the people that make those decisions, that we move to Pryor.
My husband and I both worked for Sygma, and so it was either we both move and have a job or stay there where there was really nothing.
You know, you feel like you made some life changes in order to pursue this career. So it was kind of hard to give up something that, you know, you was just newly into and enjoying the work.
I just don't like change, so I just kept my job. I liked my job. I just drove up here for 20 years now.